and the reality of our impact on those around us. And one of the main themes of the show is that it reminds us that freedom is never without responsibility. Every choice we make socially, politically, and personally have a far-reaching impact that affects the world around us. So I think the show challenges us, his philosophy, to act with awareness and integrity and recognize that inaction can be just as consequential as action.
Yeah, that's true. To act or not to act.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very thoughtful, Zoe. That's the thing about existentialism is like, in theory, when you decide for one, you might decide for all. What is the world to be according to your morality? Mm-hmm. So every individual choice has all these effects.
Right.
And that's what you explore. And this might be a way to bring in the cast members. How do you deal with this psychological tango between confinement and freedom, being stuck somewhere, wanting to be there, hating it? That's a strange psychology to kind of walk into.
Do you want to start?
You should start.
All right.
I would say overall, I think that just because like Zoe makes it a very comfortable place, so it's a bit easier to work with such a dark topic.
Yes.
I've known some of the I've known a lot of the cast members for many years.
Oh yeah. Well, you're a senior. You've
yes,
had time. That's
yeah.
right.
So I'm very, very comfortable with them. So it's it makes it easy, and the day at the end of the day is gonna end. So it makes it easy, like not to be stuck in that place when you're dealing with a show with such heavy topics about death, and not just about death, but hell and who you are as a person.
That's right.
So it makes it easier to be in such a comfortable place and feel comfortable with the people that I'm working with. So
Right.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you bring in the audience, and they get to walk around that space too.
Yeah.
I mean, just think, he wrote this in 1944 at the darkest time of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The nastiest of our history right there. And this is part of his mindset, right?
Yeah.
How do we get to this mess? So, Meyer, how about you? How did you navigate these waters?
I feel like it's definitely easier to just navigate it alongside of them, because I've worked with each of them at least on 2-3 shows apiece. So
Nice, okay.
walking alongside everyone in a comfortable environment where we can just I don't want to say joke about it, because that's what my character's more lighthearted throughout the more earlier bits of the scenes. It's trying to ease each other into what we are going to be experiencing in the future. I feel like that's like the big thing of what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And as actors, we play, so like we just have that comfortability to then like be serious in those moments, but then also find that room to play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of keep the balance of the pressure so you can really enjoy it too. Yeah. Now, we should mention there's only a couple of chances to see the play here at Eastern, and it's up on the campus. It's October 30th, which is next Thursday, 7:30. And Zoe mentioned they're having a preview at 2 p.m. this coming Monday. They're free, so please show up. And what's interesting, too, is the black box theater format. So maybe you could talk about that, because the Del Monte Theater is in the Fine Arts Center, but it's not the large theater or the concert hall. It's a small space that's very different. And maybe you could talk about why you chose that as the space for this story.
Of course. Also, just as a correction, the preview is Thursday, October 30th at 2 p.m.
Oh, the same day.
Yes, same day. Sorry about that.
Correct. No, haste makes waste.
Yes.
So twice in one day.
Yes.
Oh, that's heavy for you guys.
Oh, it's going to be a lot for them.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I chose the studio theater because it already is a very confined space, and the show is very claustrophobic. So going along those themes, I wanted it to feel also intimate with the audience too. Like you're almost on the stage with them, and you feel like you're also suffocated like in this environment. And we only have 3 couches. That's pretty much the set. We have 3 couches, the fireplace, and so I think that kind of adds to just like the confinement, and it makes you at some points in the show you feel like you're on stage with them also losing it because of how it keeps going along, and it's like there literally is no exit, like you can't escape, and I think the lack of with the set adds to that.
Right. And how about sound and lighting or music? What elements do you add to the mix?
I know that we talked about this last night, actually.
Yeah.
With the lights, overall, like you said, there was going to be a little bit of like the flickering of it, so it makes you like think of yourself like, oh, like what's going on?
Fires nearby.
Yeah, and then even with the door, like there's a moment within the show that the door, I don't want to spoil it, but like a little bit. Like there's something happens with the door, and so like let's just say that a point in time that the door glows, and so it really draws attention to that moment of like, oh, what's going to happen there? Because before it was just now the couches, and now all the attention is drawn to the door. What's going to happen with that door? Yeah. So I find that very interesting, and I love my or our lighting designer, Jill. She's an amazing person, amazing worker, and she is very intimate, talking to all of us about the things and her ideas and her vision, and she's done a beautiful job with it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, while we have you guys here, let me ask you about Eastern Arts overall. You know, several years ago, the state made a major investment in the FAIC, a brand new building, good technology for teaching and the arts. And since we have 2 seniors here and a sophomore on the way, how have your last few years been at Eastern, and how are you seeing this play out for you in terms of new opportunities or classes, things that are part of the new mix of media at Eastern that's really growing quite a bit? Yeah. Anybody?
I, as someone who was just a freshman last year going in, I don't have as much experience as these two.
Of course.
But I've worked with you on like 3 or 4 shows and you on 2 or 3. But I feel like having that sense of community, even with this rapidly, especially now growing theater department, I feel like that's amazing because I can, see the same faces over and again. But every time there's a new face, we're getting to bring them into this little family we have. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I think something really big that I like to emphasize is opportunity. There's lots and lots and lots of opportunities for anybody to be involved, even if you're not a theater major as well, or communication. There's so much. You can be involved in productions, films, you name it. There's something for everybody, I think, that could find interest. And they're always looking for people as well to help with production. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I would say a little bit of a mixture of both of what they said. There's things from my freshman year that I have been able to do now that I never thought I would be able to do. Writing a script, making a film, like editing, things of that nature. I've been a theater person through and through, and I've had the opportunity to do so much more than I could ever imagine with people and professors that I have such strong relationships with, because theater, as they tell us all the time, it truly is community. And so you grow with these people, and you know who's the hard workers, and you know who you can rely on, and that's just a beautiful thing. Like, you do truly create a lovely family.
Yeah. And if you're fortunate, you find that after school in the places where you go and the work you do, the same kind of spirit. So in case you've joined us here on the radio, we're talking about No Exit, which is being performed at Eastern at the Del Monte Studio Theater next Thursday, the 30th. 2 performances, 2 in the afternoon, 7:30 in the evening. Last question for you guys. When it's all done, what do you hope are the takeaways for the audience? What are you going to have them try to keep?
That's a good question.
Something more than dread, of course.
Well, I think it's a show that makes you think, and I think you can interpret it many different ways. So I want everyone to have their own interpretation of the show, and honestly, I just hope it makes you kind of think about today and how it can still tie in to what happened in the show. But honestly, like I said, I think that's up to their own interpretation and what they see.
Yeah.
I think that particularly with my character, I think that it's like one thing that's so relevant is just eyes. Like, especially now, like everyone's eyes is always on someone somehow, some way with social media.
Yeah.
Like you're able to see like through that window. So just it's about perception and just understanding. I think that that's one of the things that can definitely be taken away about like people's eyes overall. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would love to build upon what you were saying is how the characters interact and see each other, especially how they grow during the show between Cordeaux and Inez, how they see each other, Cordeaux and Estelle and Inez. How they see each other and how we all see each other grow and develop throughout not just the course of the show, but in our lives. But I think that's something to take a close look at if you come to see the show on next Thursday.
Yeah. And so maybe one last thing, Zoe, as the director, what do you think as you tackled the project was a surprise that you found once you engaged the beast and you had to deal with it and drill down? Were there any surprises for you? And what was the most challenging part of it?
That is a good question. I think the most challenging part for me was blocking the show, which is basically like, having the traffic of where the actors will be moving around the stage. Just because you would think it's easy having only 3 couches. That seems simple enough, but it was quite complicated making sure that it wasn't too still at times and making sure that like people were getting up and using the space. So I think that was honestly a challenge, but I had some good surprises. Everyone's been very adaptable and everyone's been really, really lovely to work with. And I got very lucky with such a great cast. And we've made quite a few changes since the beginning. I mean, even last night in our rehearsal, we've made some significant changes. And they're taking the feedback very well. And like I said, adaptable. They've been great.
It also helps having an amazing director.
Oh, well, thank you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for being here and for all the work you're doing to give us a great performance.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
wish
Thank you
you
for
all
having
of your
us.
time after Eastern. You got another year to go, but you're on the way. You have more time.
Oh, I have a lot more time.
You have
Oh my
more time,
God.
Connor? But again, the show is No Exit. Check it out. It's very, very relevant to what's going on today. It's going to be next Thursday the 30th, 2 opportunities at 7:30 and then 2 in the afternoon in the Del Monte Studio Theater and the Fine Arts Center at Eastern right here in Willimantic. So I'm going to try to make one of these. I hope you have a great time. Thanks for your good work, and we'll try to have you back next semester. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All righty. So what we're going to do now is take a little break for a couple of messages, and then we have some music coming your way from the Thread City Jazz Trio. They have a new release. And then after a short bit, we're going to have the president of Eastern join us. Don't go away. All righty, we're back live in the studio here for On the Homefront. If you'd like to join us to share your news or a story, some good things you're doing, don't be shy. Use email to make the connection. We'll be right here. You'll also get a YouTube link to share your story in your own media. So be sure to get connected here. It's john@humanartsmedia.com is the email. We're happy to have you on board. We're going to take a musical break right now. The Thread City Jazz Trio is a great band. I've heard them a couple of times. They're very good. Anthony Cornicello is on piano, Rick O'Neill is on bass, and Matt Bronson's on drums. They are performing this Friday night at the Fine Arts Concert Hall at Eastern. They're doing a special recording on the stage for the trio, and it's an invited audience. But if you love jazz, if you want to hear it this Friday at 7:30, send me an email or just give me a call when I'm here at the station, 456-1400, and just give me your name. We'll be sure to get you a ticket to get in. It should be wonderful music, and they're recording it for posterity. It should be a great concert. This is their new release. It's called Keeney Never Stops. It just came out this year. We're going to hear a track right now as a bridge between some time right now, and then we're going to have a visit with the Eastern president, Karim Ismaeli. So this is a classic from Charles Mingus, Nostalgia in Times Square. Enjoy. All right, that was music from Charles Mingus, one of my jazz heroes. That was performed by the Thread City Jazz Trio. This is their new release that came out this year, Keeney Never Stops, a very nice mix of material. It's on the threadcityjazz.com label. And these guys are playing on campus at Eastern this Friday night at 7:30 in the Fine Arts Concert Hall. It's a special recording session on the stage. And if you'd like to go, it's free. Just send me an email, john@humanartsmedia.com, or just give us a call here at 456-1400 and just give us your name. We'll be happy to have you there. But the Thread City Jazz Trio is one of the great gifts of Eastern. Some of their faculty are on this, and it's a great, great musical group. So right now, I'm very happy to share the studio again with Dr. Karim Ismaeli, president of Eastern Connecticut State University. I think this is our fourth visit now.
It is,
and
yes.
It's really nice to have you back in the house.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, John, for the invitation.
So one thing that I think we'll start with is there's a couple of events coming up that tie into larger issues for higher education. And we'll talk about these and also let you know that you can attend as well. One is coming up on October 23rd, which is the Board of Regents is going to be visiting the Eastern campus. They travel around the state. They'll be here at Eastern at 10 in the morning on campus. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about, at this time of the year, what are some of the struggles that they're dealing with that they'll be talking about? What are their priorities for 2025?
So I think, we're focused on obviously ensuring that the universities are supported, both financially, but also in terms of system support. That's a key issue where we're focused on enrollment. So there'll be information shared about enrollment for all of the campuses. And I think, we'll be talking about needs. So infrastructure needs and other kinds of issues. So the agenda is quite busy, but the way the Board of Regents works is there are committees, and the committees basically report in at this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you have any sense of their anticipation of having to plan for change that may not always be desirable, but the federal situation is kind of unpredictable. It's unstable politically. You don't know how long answers are going to last these days.
Yep.
So it's difficult for them to deal with reality, with people, and to provide flexibility that they can handle. How does that work?
Well, so what I would say is that every president is part of what's called the President's Council with the Chancellor. We meet very frequently to talk about issues. As you sort of alluded to, the federal landscape is highly volatile right now. So what we want to do is not only, we don't want to be reactive, we want to be proactive in thinking about what are the impacts that the state system might experience and plan for that. So those are different scenarios. We hope, of course, that the federal funding that our institutions get, whether it's federal financial aid or support for grants or other kinds of programs like TRIO, we hope that will continue. But it's highly unpredictable, and so we have to be thinking about worst case scenarios, because if we don't think about worst case scenarios, we'll be in a jam, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is projects and programs that were funded and went through the congressional meat grinder and got funded are still being yanked.
Yes.
After the fact, some projects are halfway done. They've lost their money.
Yes.
And it's like, well, what do? We spent half of the money.
Yep.
We can't even finish the job. And that's happening widely.
And, we have a couple of programs like that. One is for underrepresented students in STEM education, so in science, technology, engineering, and math.
Right.
I will tell you that these students are incredible, but the funding for that program was pulled without any notice. And when I think about, to be perfectly honest, when I think about decisions that are completely distant from the individuals that we're trying to support through higher education, it's very distressing to me. These students are doing what you would hope every student would be: diligent. They're focused on doing the right thing, getting an education, and improving their social mobility. I do not know how we can be against such things.
And how has the DACA community managed? Because I know, I had Elsa here a few times.
Yes.
Elsa Nunez was his predecessor. She embraced DACA and was actually a leader, one of the early schools that embraced the whole concept. So how are those folks handling all this?
Well, it's trepidatious.
Oh, yeah.
It's very concerning for them. I have frequent conversations with our students who are under or undocumented about their fears. I will tell you that one student came to visit me and was worried about herself, but was worried about her parents who are in Georgia. You know, President Ismaeli, will you take care of my family if there's a raid in Georgia?
Right.
So I said, yes, we will take care of you because that's what we are. And we will work with our community partners in Willimantic if need be. Yeah. But that's the kind of stress that our students are facing. And it's not just undocumented or underdocumented students. It could be individuals in the LGBTQIA plus community. It can be individuals who are Hispanic, Latino. It could be anyone. But when I think about what we do at Eastern, we want to give students the space where they can ensure that their educational priorities are met, that they are able to focus on their studies. Yes, the terrain is very challenging, but at Eastern, and you know this, John, what I will say is we have a community that cares, one student at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I should mention I've been teaching part-time at Eastern for many, many years, and I've seen the changes, and they're all good. I see much more of a mix in the classroom now, and I see people getting along, and it's a nice energy. But I wonder, for those that are uncertain, how are they managing their personal lives? You know, they're far from home.
Yeah.
As a faculty, I get emails sometimes about, for example, students are advised, if your family is abroad, don't leave at a certain time of the year because you may not get to come back. And that's fearful when you have somebody halfway through a program and they want to come back, and you're saying, well, be careful about leaving, right? So how does that play out?
We're doing everything we can to ensure that students are not in a position where they're in a difficult position with respect to travel over holidays. Like I said, John, we're ahead of this. We have an immigration sort of working group, and we have individuals who are developing resources, but ultimately the institution is invested in these students and their success, and we will do everything we can to make sure that they're protected, that they're safe, and that they're able to thrive at Eastern.
Yeah. And you know, with all the legal complications that we're talking about, the school is bringing our Attorney General, William Tong, to visit. He's going to make a presentation on Tuesday at 3 p.m. at the Betty Tipton Room. It's the Student Center Theater, which is next to the Betty Tipton Room, but 3 o'clock. So can you talk about what he'll be sharing with us for that visit, and how the Attorney General has been very active in terms of immigration and protecting people's rights, very proactive.
Yep. You know, as the principal law enforcement, principal lawyer official in the state, obviously he's been focused on protecting Connecticut and making sure that our values are projected. So we have a very good relationship with the Attorney General, Eastern, and so I had a conversation with him over the summer, and he said that he would love to come and speak to our community. So when you ask about what it's going to be like, basically it's going to be a conversation. You know, I'm going to ask him questions like, what does the public liberal arts mean to you? How do you think about leadership at this time? What are some of the issues on the horizon that you feel we need to be attentive to? And what is it like to be the Attorney General? Yeah. So it's going to be wide-ranging. I'm looking forward to hosting him and giving him an opportunity to share the work that he does, but also he's an incredible leader with an incredible story. We honored him at the graduate. His own family. And he speaks about that frequently, and it's a incredible story. We honored him at the graduate commencement, the last graduate commencement, with the Distinguished Public Service Award. And as I say, personally, but also in terms of his connections to Eastern, we feel very, very positive about the Attorney General and his work.
Yeah. So he'll be visiting 3 o'clock next Tuesday in the Student Center Theater on campus. So let's shift gears now and drill right down into the trenches of classwork, because you have a class now that you're experimenting. It's called Why Universities Matter. And
Correct,
this is your first time teaching. So what's it been like so far, and how are the students responding to that profound question that is not often asked?
Well, John, I actually just finished grading midterms. And
I did that too, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that the question was, why does a university education, why does Eastern matter to you? And the assignments, they were videos, they were artistic pieces, there were podcasts, there was sort of a standard essay, and every single student reflected on what it is that the university in their mind represents for them, which is usually a path forward into the opportunities that society has. But also, and I think you know where I'm going with this, the personal challenges that they've overcome.
Oh yeah.
The sort of the way in which students overcome those challenges and think positively about the future. So I was grading those assignments, and I will say that I was so touched, blown away by the quality, and really feeling good about the fact that students are thinking about the environment we're in and why it matters. In this day and age, there's a lot of criticism of colleges and universities.
There is.
Right? And what I will say is our students are here, and they're here for a reason. That's proof that universities do matter. So we've been unpacking all sorts of things. Today we had a class that talked about student debt.
No.
Student debt is a serious issue.
It is.
For graduates of universities. The average debt for a bachelor's degree recipient is $30,000. That's a lot. When I think about what sort of the relative debt that I had when I graduated, it certainly wasn't that high.
Sure.
And then if we go to other degree types and we think about the I think it's over $1 trillion in debt.
Total.
Student loan, total across the country. So it's been really good to help students recognize that debt is something that society has an obligation to address. So what I will say is, and this is my own background, we talk about Eastern being affordable, but if you step back and you look at this internationally, certainly in the global north, we are not affordable. We are absolutely not affordable. So my students are going to be looking at what is it like to go to school in New Zealand, to go to school in Canada, to go to school in Brazil, to go to school in South Korea. They're going to be comparing that, and they're going to be learning about those systems of education. And so, for me, it's eye-opening for me to see them work through these issues, but it's also hopefully eye-opening for them to understand that the way we do things doesn't have to be the way we do things. There are choices here, just like healthcare. There are choices,
I think people, sometimes they get so caught in the moment that they forget it was preceded by lots of choices that could have gone differently.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And the other aspect of this is how students in many cases might be the first one in their family to go.
Yes.
They might have English as a second language. They came here with a dream to have a better life.
Yes.
And they're struggling in different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how the school tries to balance help for people with different kinds of need. For example, I've been teaching a long time, and I always do this delicately, but it's always viewed sometimes as an insult when you think students coming into college are less prepared than ever. So I'm not blaming high schools. I'm not blaming parents that won't spend tax dollars to make their local schools better. But you're graduating kids that are less capable. And what happens is universities like Eastern have to use a lot of resources to help them catch up, because they have to do that or they can't succeed. And I know it's a budget stress too, because you're using resources to help people get basic skills. And once they figured it out, they're ready to roll, but they never got it in high school.
You just made the case for the kind of investment that Eastern needs and every public institution needs.
Yeah.
So when I sort of work with, we talk about budgetarily constrained environments, but the needs of students, should students have those needs met? Absolutely. But we also then need to invest. When students graduate from university, from Eastern, the chances are about 86% of them are going to be in Connecticut. Yeah. They're going to be paying taxes. They're going to be productive citizens.
That's right.
So the question for me is, what is the investment? We talk about deficits and budget mitigation. From my point of view, it's high time for an investment. It really is. And we struggle with that. But what I will say is that we recently were awarded a $2.5 million grant to focus on students, their retention, their progression, and their graduation.
Yep.
And that kind of endorsement of the work that we do is really important. That's from the federal government. It's the Department of Education. Right now, we can't access the funds because there's a shutdown. But once those funds flow to us, we will be actively doing what you said, John, making sure that we are meeting students where they are.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's a reality check. So when they leave, they succeed, and it's measurable.
Yeah.
The other aspect of this is the idea of the liberal arts. When you're rethinking the cost of education and thinking, well, trade school, learning technical skills, high-end education, but what's the value? What is it for? And sometimes people don't spend enough time on that, I think, because it could be any career path you choose, but why? What are the values? How much damage is done to our country by people in business that have value problems? They have money, position, authority. They make terrible decisions, and they're educated. So something is missing. And that's why, what is it for? Who's benefiting? Can you share benefits? How does the profit thing serve the public and not just those who own?
Yeah.
So that's part of the education process, is learning that in any discipline.
Absolutely. And, you know, when we think, so for example, the university, we have an anthropology program. Yeah. Should a university have an anthropology program? Of course it should. Should it have a philosophy program? Of course it should. But how do we support those programs? We support those programs with, for example, our vibrant nursing and health sciences programs.
Yes.
So there's always cross subsidies, you know. And in the state, being partly Canadian,
right,
I've always viewed that equalization payments to those parts of the state or those institutions that might need that makes sense in the macro picture. So, you know, are we New Brunswick or Newfoundland or Nova Scotia of Canada?
Right.
We probably are. Okay. We know where Ontario is. It's probably Central Connecticut State, right? So the question for me is, how do we as a system of public higher education, recognize that we have a higher obligation to serve students? If Eastern is in a position to equalize payments across to Western Connecticut or Southern Connecticut, we should do it. Yeah. We're unfortunately not in that position. So these are the kinds of questions that we face. But the bottom line here is every student deserves the best. You know, John, if I could?
Please.
A week ago Friday, we had an opportunity to take 17 students to Washington, D.C. to visit the World Bank. Okay, the World Bank, it was Eastern Day at the World Bank.
Okay, really?
Yep.
Wow.
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, it was great. And it was because of connections that we have there, and we happen to be able to use those connections for our students. So again, for me, that costs money, but those are transformative experiences for students.
They are. They are. They plant the seed.
They plant the seed.
Yeah.
They broaden horizons. If you had seen the students interacting with World Bank officials, you would have been so proud, because they asked questions that were really important, that were on point. They talked about poverty. They talked about a livable planet. You know, that's the mission of the World Bank. So for me, it's how do we provide that kind of educational experience all the time, right?
Yep.
It costs money.
It does.
But is it worth it?
So let's take a shift for a moment and think about parents with kids that are getting ready for college. What's it for? I grew up in the 50s, and one of the nastiest jokes that I grew up with was, if you can't do it, teach. It was deeply insulting. Even as a kid, I realized that was rude, because you need teachers who can do. And that mentality for some places meant less funding for schools, less respect for teachers, lower teacher pay. You wonder why teachers burn out? You do what they do and see if you don't burn out. Look at the hours. after the clock is done. So when you say if you can't do it, teach, you're setting the stage. So for parents out there today who are struggling, what could you give them as advice or things to think about, traps to avoid, things you've heard that like take people down when it's a dead end, so they can think better and do the most with what they have?
Yeah, so if we use teaching as an example, teaching is so important, right? And the individuals that are involved in that noble act of imparting knowledge and working with students at all ages, from my perspective, that's a public service. It's a public good. And again, what I would say is, when you look at the way the U.S. thinks about public teaching compared to other countries, we're not treating teachers well. We're not paying them enough. And that's why there's such high burnout. That's why teachers often struggle to sort of get above the kind of just the managing of classrooms. At Eastern, as you know, we were a teaching college. Education is so important. Our educational program is so important. We have great faculty, sort of teaching future teachers how to teach. So what you have to do, if I was a parent, I think you've got to be thinking about balance here. If a student is interested in teaching, is interested in law enforcement, is interested in providing social services through social work programs, we should honor and value and celebrate those decisions, because those are the positions that ultimately weave the social fabric of society and ensure that we are all in a better position. Often we forget that, and it's at our peril.
Yeah. So maybe a couple of last thoughts while we have some time. By the way, in case you've joined us on the radio, we're speaking with Karim Ismaeli, the president of Eastern Connecticut State University. When you look ahead to the rest of the school year, what are a couple of things that keep you positive? And what are a couple of landmines that you know ahead of time you have to watch for?
Well, there's so much positive at the university right now. We are building on the first year of my presidency and sort of working towards the development of a strategic compass, which are directions that the university will focus on. Mm-hmm. And the areas of focus have been identified. We're going through conversations at all levels of the institution to ensure that our community feels positive and strong about that. So we are in a very good place, John, from my perspective. The landmines are, it's really leadership. So the question for me is, when you see the erosion of support for higher education, when you see the assault on higher education from the federal government, the question is, do we remain silent about that, or do we challenge it? And so different leaders have different positions on this. Mm-hmm. My position is, if we remain silent, we are doing a disservice to the roles that we occupy. I will never put Eastern in any crosshairs. That's not my goal. But we have to always be focused on our values, mm-hmm. because our values are the right values. And that means we're concerned about ensuring that students have the best ability to succeed, that we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we believe in inclusive excellence. These are not things. So what I would say is, we have to be safeguarding our core mission, and do so unapologetically,
right,
and positively.
Do you, with the other four presidents at the other branches, as a team, do you coordinate strategies sometimes? Each school has its own community. It has its own academic mix. But as a president, you must have some team strategies that you do together. Can you share some of that?
We do. Yeah. We received some, thanks to the work of our faculty and others, we received some PACT funding. So this is funding to support students who want to do a 4-year degree. So it's about $7 million, which isn't that much. That goes back to my theme of we need more investment.
Right.
But the sort of the presidents will be getting together to figure out some principles around how those funds will be allocated. That's really important. As far as broad strategy, we work with the chancellor, but honestly, we have autonomy. You know, you would not want Eastern to be controlled by the Board of Regents or a system. You would want Eastern's, because Eastern's been around since 1889.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We have a tradition, we have a culture, we have a history. I am obligated as president, we are all obligated to safeguard our traditions, our mission, our history. That's the culture that we have at Eastern. My job is to continue to nurture that.
Yeah. And, you know, one more thing that Eastern has that's unique is in its history, it's had a very low turnover of presidents. They stay.
That's right.
They grow. And with your first year, I hope you'll keep on that list as well.
That's very kind, John.
Yeah.
I will say that I'm enjoying every minute.
Great.
Yeah, and I enjoyed every minute of this.
Well, Karim, thank you for being here today. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay. So we'll have Karim back in the spring. That's it for this week. Thank you for sharing your time with us. The show will be posted on YouTube in a few days. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.